In 2021, Greece reported 18 cases of femicide, a 50% rise over 2020. Greece is one of Europe's most patriarchal societies. It ranks dead last in the EU's Gender Equality Index, and that is reflected in the country's news media, which has placed the mainstream media's coverage of these stories under the microscope. The Listening Post's Flo Phillips now on femicide in Greece and the sometimes detrimental role that journalism has played there in the way such crimes are seen.
First came the pictures, a family in mourning. Then came the words spoken by the widowed husband. A funeral tribute from a young father to his murdered wife as he held their baby. The baby's mother was a woman named Caroline Crouch, and as the story went, she was beaten and strangled to death in her Athens home by a gang of ruthless foreign robbers. There was a crime story made for television, with elements of glamour and gore, almost too scripted to be believed, and the Greek media feasted on it.
It satisfied all of Greek society's stereotypes. A beautiful family, the breadwinner, Bobis, a handsome, successful pilot, and his wife, Caroline. They lived in a beautiful maisonette where they were bringing up their beautiful baby daughter. That would be enough to fulfill all societal norms of what a family should look like. But then, this perfect family is under attack by who? By armed foreign burglars. The Greek media turned that material into juicy content and the viewers into collective mourners. Then everything came crashing down.
It took 37 days for the real story to come out. The revelation that Crouch was in fact murdered by her own husband left Greeks reeling. And yet the mainstream media, they weren't ready to let go of their narrative.
The coverage of the facts was problematic. There was a reporter on Sky TV who, after Babis had confessed to the murder, still referred to him as the alleged suspect. She stated that at least he didn't cut her up. It was almost like he was giving the suspect an alibi instead of calling him out for this heinous crime.
That happened because Babis was the son-in-law that everyone in Greek society wanted to have. It's just that he turned out to be a murderer. The more conservative wing of the Greek media were eager to justify his actions. Suddenly, Caroline was depicted as a foreign woman, way too dynamic and vocal. And according to a TV psychologist, Babis was the one who had the ideal online profile that would get him many followers.
Gender determines how the media research and report on a story, and it ends up being entirely confusing. It feels like mainstream media here often focus more on the woman, forgetting the actual criminal. The victim was pretty, she was a kind person, a young mother. Greek television usually chooses to stick to journalistic cliches. And by choosing not to refer to these killings as femicides, we end up with coverage that murders the victim for a second time.
The impact of femicide goes beyond the loss of life. These are crimes that tap into a collective fear, so how the media treat them really matters. Unfortunately, for many years now, the Greek media haven't helped to bring about a zero-tolerance culture for gender violence. Just the opposite.
Like sound bites that are sympathetic to the murderer, coming from the police department. Stavros Balaskas is a senior officer on the Caroline Crouch case.
Εάν έπαιρνε τηλέφωνο τα αστυνομία, δεν θα πήγαινε ούτε 4 χρόνια φυλακή. Τώρα θα στα πείσει με τη φυλακή. Ναι.
That soundbite came to be known as the Balaskas Doctrine, advice delivered on camera on how to escape true justice, a life sentence if you murder your wife. Just call the police and confess right away. There was no follow-up from the journalist, no pushback. Was it any coincidence then that, in the weeks after, more men came forward confessing to killing their partners?
Here is yet another example of us journalists being caught by surprise. We weren't aware of the incredible social impact this statement would have, and we should have emphasized how important it was to address it. The journalist never questioned the statement or even triggered a dialogue around it.
The murder of Caroline Crouch should not be seen in isolation. Feminist groups estimate that over the past 10 years, gender-based violence has tripled in Greece. And currently, at least one woman dies at the hands of a man, most often her partner or ex-partner, every month. Like Garafalia Sarako, pushed off the Folegandros cliffs by her boyfriend. Nectaria Maraki stabbed 16 times by her estranged husband. Odora Zaharia, gunned down by her former partner on the island of Rothos. But tune in to any of Greece's many popular TV shows, and you'd be left guessing as to who the real victims are.
In the case of Thora, the suspect's uncle got a lot of airtime to enhance the killer's profile.
Ένα παιδί που, όπως θα ακούσετε να σας πει σε λίγο, είχε οικογενειακές αρχές, που σεβόταν τη γυναίκα, αγαπούσε.
The truth is, the Greek media reflect the gender inequality that exists in society at large, and they always emphasize the fact that the suspect has never been in trouble with the authorities.
The uncle was publicly expressing the other side of the story. He came on my show and blamed the woman, saying that her morals were questionable.
Τον είχε διώξει από το σπίτι.
You know, it's a relief for those of us who present shows like mine to be able to show viewers both sides of the argument, no matter how difficult it is for us as journalists. Because a coin always has two sides. The accused lives his own truth.
Zina Kutselini doesn't mince her words. She's a host for Star Channel and one of the country's most famous faces. For more than 3 decades, she has been part of the Greek media establishment in a country where entrenched patriarchal views have been slow to change.
I believe that if all women unite and support each other, men will follow. To some extent, we are to blame for this current situation. When I present femicide on my show, do you know what I observe? I observe that if the blame is placed on the woman, women stop watching while men continue. Women don't have the strength of character to face their own truths. It's very important to be able to look yourself in the eye and tell yourself, it's your fault that you are putting up with your husband. Please, let's not blame everything on the patriarchy.
Στην Ελλάδα, καταρχάς, όταν μιλάμε για πατριαρχία.
When we talk about patriarchy, sexism, or toxic masculinity in Greece, there's always this strange reaction. Sometimes it's laughter, but some women get abused for bringing these issues up, and they're never mentioned on Greek television. I actually don't think I've heard the word patriarchy used on Greek TV in years.
As it happens, the word patriarchy comes from Greek, patriarchia. It means rule of the father, and covering women, the violence they suffer, remains a challenge for Greek news organizations with their culture of male dominance to this day.
And finally, Novak Djokovic, the tennis player who's been causing such a COVID commotion. Djokovic showed up in Melbourne, unvaccinated, to defend his Australian Open title. He had a vaccine exemption certificate, then had that exemption taken away. He had a visa and then did not, due to his dodgy paperwork and an ever-changing story on whether he had tested positive and when. Not a fun week for the #1 seed. Now, imagine spending 9 years in that kind of limbo. Mehdi Ali is a 24-year-old Iranian who's cooped up at the same Melbourne hotel Djokovic was. He's among the more than 1,400 refugees and migrants currently stuck in Australian detention. Ali's been tweeting, giving interviews to get those stories to news organizations that seem far more interested in celebrities like Djokovic than the larger issue, an immigration system that's broken and needs fixing. We'll see you next time here at The Listening Post.
We're joined by Mehdi Ali, an Iranian refugee who's been held in detention by Australian authorities for 9 years.
I like speaking out because I feel I'm protesting against the cruelty and against the unjust treatments of Australian authority. And it's kind of sad that after 9 years, because Djokovic has been detained here, all these cameras around and people trying to get in touch, and especially journalists trying to get in touch. I'm glad that the media eventually paying attention about our circumstances and our situation, because we've been through misery.
Mehdi, what do you make of all the media attention?
Well, yesterday a few people messaged me over Facebook and Twitter, and they came here for Djokovic. Then they found out about our circumstances, and they were shocked. I hope they drag the attention further, and they keep talking about it. They keep the attention on about our situation. I really hope. I don't want it to be a wave, comes and goes.